That's right, the man right here, Shea Dixon of 247sports.com. That's where I get all my info right now. Recruiting. This is the season. National Signing Day, I should say, for the early period, because remember, there is another signing day in February. So now there's two of them. This is the second year that that's happened, Shea. How has that kind of changed, by the way, the recruiting landscape overall, and maybe even for LSU as well?
Well, I think some people think it's taken some of the drama out of the February National Signing Day when everybody would do it at one time.
Sure.
And I think Ed Orgeron talked about it this week that the goal in the second year of doing this, and basketball teams have been doing this forever, right? You know, they have the spring period and then they have the fall period and the spring period. This is a chance, as Orgeron said, is make sure every one of your commitments that you can get signed, you sign. And they did, all but two of them, who are going to hold out until February. And then close with who you can. They were in the mix for 3 or 4 guys yesterday. They got 2 of them in Siaki Ika, the D tackle out of Utah, and Darius Jones, a cornerback out of Mississippi. So I think they considered it a win. And they're at 19 signees, 21 commitments. You can ultimately sign 25 in February. So he's got some wiggle room, and I think that's what most teams want to do. Get the bulk of your class locked in, and then kind of battle for those final spots where you need it.
Let's talk about Derrick Stingley Jr. right here from Baton Rouge, making us all Baton Rouge proud, an amazing athlete. Ryan Clark said he thinks he could be one of the most talented LSU Tigers ever. What makes Stingley that #1 recruit? What makes him so special?
We could throw a stone to where he goes to school right now. I mean, this is a kid who, as you say, he is Baton Rouge. I mean, going to Dunham, y'all have been around him for so long. We've seen him come up on the high school scene, and even at Dunham, you know, I know that he plays a level above the competition that's on the field, but he dominates. He's never not been dominant in every facet. And I think if you're checking boxes, that's certainly one of them. A lot of college coaches certainly value, the NFL values, how you test. How athletic are you really? Because everybody can be coached up to a certain extent, but you can't teach some stuff. And he tests in the 99th percentile in pretty much everything. And coming out of high school is kind of like Patrick Peterson, built the same, do the same things, and I think that's a good comparison for him. But you throw in NFL bloodlines, high football IQ, academic all-state, early graduate and early enrollee, has never been in any sort of trouble, comes from great families. So there's nothing you really worry about. And then you say, oh, he's going to be a cornerback at LSU with Corey Raymond. And we've seen how they've developed lesser guys to become high draft picks. And I agree with Ryan Clark. I think that in the modern recruiting era, whether it's Patrick Peterson or Leonard Fournette or some of these guys that they've signed that were ranked among the top players in the country, I'd put Stingley right up there with him. And I think he has a chance to make the type of impact where his name is tossed around with those guys.
And by the way, he's going to return kicks, and we've seen the value of that the last few years as well. Let's talk about everyone who wants to know about the quarterback of the future. And that right here is Peter Parish. I liked that he went into that 7A Alabama final and beat, by the way, someone he's going to be staring across on the other sideline, I should say, not across the line. And Alabama commit, the younger Tua. So you've already gotten the LSU-Alabama matchup, and he's come out on top. What have you seen from Peter Parish? Maybe a comparison as far as a quarterback that we've already seen, maybe from Peter Parish, that can kind of translate there to the college ranks.
Yeah, I think a lot of people give the comparison of Jalen Hurts. I mean, he's a guy who runs the ball as well as any quarterback in the country, can still throw it, but as Orgeron said this week, there's so much that Parish does and did for Central to where he would run it to set up the pass, and they had talented running backs. LSU will have that for him. Obviously, Peter Parish played on a talented high school team, but they were left at the altar while Peter Parish was kind of growing up as a quarterback in their system, had made the semifinals, finally break through. As you said, played Taulia Tagovailoa, who's going to Bama, smashed them in the state title game, went undefeated, and I can tell you right before signing day, Kirby Smart was trying to flip him away at the last second as Georgia looked for quarterbacks. He stayed put with LSU, and Brian, you're in a good spot because finally you've got Joe Burrow for another year.
Right.
You've got Miles Brennan in the tank as a guy that you feel good about who certainly coming out of high school was highly touted, and then you bring in a guy like Peter Parish. So it seems like for the first time they're not really scrambling anymore at quarterback, that they're building a little bit of depth.
Huge news for LSU Tiger fans. Let's talk about that running back position because we didn't really see that dominant runner this year back there in the backfield. Not to say that they were bad. They're SEC, great, pretty good college running backs. Let's talk about John Emery coming in, and everyone's expecting him to make some huge impact. Should we expect John Emery to just come in and blow people away, kind of like a Leonard Fournette, those types of expectations in his freshman year?
I don't think it's too heavy of expectations for him.
Okay.
He got banged up as a junior, but had a good junior year. He had a great senior year at Destrehan, and you mentioned testing well. He does it incredibly well, but he's a big kid, hard runner, already has a great skill set, really high football IQ. I think that's one thing that people don't see or don't know about him. So I think he's going to adjust to the game quickly. And as you said, this year, you have Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Nick Brissett, and I think that they probably overachieved what people thought they might have had. I think people wanted one or the other to emerge, and both did. There were many times they relied on both. But now you'll have Edwards-Helaire and the option for a guy like Chris Curry, who took a red shirt coming in this past year, and bring in John Emery and bring in Tyree Davis. I mean, you're talking about LSU signing the #2 running back in the country, and John Emery might be #1 by the time everything settles. And then Tyree Davis, the #6 running back in the country, both from Louisiana. Both are already big enough to play at the college level. I won't be surprised to see another timeshare of sorts at running back next year, but instead of Brissett, I think you'll see a lot of Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Emery, and Davis.
And when you come up to the college ranks, it's all about protecting the quarterback. And when you go play action, in LSU's case, that pass protection. You think John Emery and Tyree Davis, can they already be that physical? I mean, these guys are, about to go to their prom, here in a couple months. Guys usually just aren't built like that.
Right. These two are, and I think that's what Orgeron's excited about because they're every down backs. They've got speed, but they can also run between the tackles. They've shown in high school they can pass block well. Tyree Davis is 225, 230, and runs a 4.5. I think
he's a big boy.
So he can handle the physicality of the SEC. Emery's proven his durability. He didn't get hurt this year. He's in that 210 to 215 range. So these aren't your normal kind of all-purpose backs coming out of high school at 6 foot 180 and are going to need to have some time in college. These guys are ready, and I think LSU needed it. When you lose Darrell Williams, Leonard Fournette, Darius Geis, all in kind of a small window of time, you've got to be able to flip the running back room.
Time to call your shot, really. Your diamond in the rough, maybe a guy that not everyone is talking about, but LSU fans should be excited from day one when this guy walks in.
Well, I think people were excited yesterday for Darius Jones, who they got out of Mississippi, and he played for Horn Lake. He was the quarterback. They went undefeated and won a state title in Mississippi, but he's a corner at the college level, and he's sort of a Greedy Williams clone, but a lot more athletic. And when you talk about athleticism across the board, he's up there with Stingley. So you've got the potential to maybe have two really locked down corners, and in the same class, the same age. We've seen LSU get big-name corners in the same class before, but these two seem to have some real promise. And I'll give you another guy. We don't talk about Haynesville much, right? Haynesville's put out some prospects over the years. Joseph Evans signed with LSU this week. Going into the day, they landed up Huaika, but he was the only D lineman they had committed. He had been committed for a long time. He's a 3-star. Not a lot of people had paid a lot of attention to him, but he's added some weight. His senior year stuff looked really good, and LSU's in a spot where we're going to have to see what a lot of these D linemen they signed last year are going to do this coming season. They're going to lose. We saw Ed Alexander. They're already going to lose. We'll see what happens with guys like Rashard Lawrence and Fehoko, Glenn Logan, but even with them coming back, they're going to have some guys step up. I think if you can get Joe Evans in for a year or two, he could be one of the guys that down the line people say, man, we really undervalued his signature.
Someone I'm really high on, and so are you, Ishmael Ali. I mean, that kid, you saw it in the playoff game. I think it was the semifinals. He absolutely dump trucked someone in the backfield. Right. Didn't even have the ball, but he felt it the next morning. Now, National Signing Day morning, he didn't sign with the Tigers. Why did that happen, do you think? And where do the Tigers stand as far as maybe nailing down one of the best defensive tackles in the country?
They're going all out. And he had said from the start, he said, I'm going to play my year-a-day meet. Our goal is a state title. That means that I'm playing all the way through to December, and then I'll start taking my visits. And he reigned true on that. They won a state title. The next weekend, he visited A&M. Then the dead period hit. So he wants to go into January and take visits to LSU, Alabama, the potential for a couple of more visits, and then do a ceremony at A-Meet High on signing day in February. But I think most people think this is LSU Alabama. We obviously know that Bama went into Tangipahoa Parish and got Shaheem Carter. They got Devonta Smith, who obviously caught a big touchdown for them in last year's game. And LSU's looking to buck that trend, and they signed Trey Palmer out of Kentwood. They seem to be in the lead for Devante Lee out of Amite, who's going to sign in February. And now it's all, what is his teammate going to do? What is Sopsher going to do? And if they were able to land him and kind of sweep the Tangipahoa area this year, I think that's something that Ed Orgeron would consider maybe his biggest statement, because that was kind of the one area in the past couple of years that Bama was coming into and getting players.
Well, everyone's pretty skittish after the last couple of trips Nick Saban has taken, of course, there to Amite. Are these two linked, Devante Lee? Because, I regard Devante Lee very highly, too. You see some of his catches back there. But how linked do you think Devante Lee and Sopsher? Are they just two prospects at one high school?
I think that there are two prospects at one high school. I think they would be totally cool and would enjoy playing together, but I think they'll both make their own decision. I think maybe the bigger link that fans are watching for is that Ishmael Sopsher has a brother who left Amite, went JUCO, and he's trying to get back into the SEC. And he's only got one offer right now, and it's from LSU. And after the state title game, Sopsher went on record and said, if a team's not offering my brother a scholarship, then they're going to be out of the race. And that puts Alabama, A&M, a lot of these schools, if he holds true to that word, in a spot where they need to decide if they're going to offer him a scholarship. So Rodney Sopsher's in play here. And if if he's living up to his word and signing day were today, it would be LSU. If he wants to play with his brother, that's the one school they both have an option at, and LSU's offered him both. I think that's kind of the one wild card thing that could come into play here with him.
That's why he's the man. Shea Dixon, 24/7 Sports. Go check out all his stuff, 247sports.com. For Shea Dixon, I'm Brian Holland for your Louisiana Go Nation.